What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about all the historic teams that were announced and what I think of each team. First off, I'll mention all the teams, and this is in the general order. I don't know if they're 100% accurate, especially since when about the first 5 or 6 teams came out, I really wasn't paying attention too much to it. So here they are. The first is the 2000 Trailblazers, then the 2003 Mavs, followed by the 2000 Raptors, 2008 Rockets, 2004 Pistons, 2001 Lakers, 2008 Celtics, 2013 Heat, 2005 Suns, 2006 Heat, 2004 T-Wolves, and 2007 Cavs. I went through that very quickly because I did videos on almost every one of those teams except for, I believe, the Trailblazers, Mavs, Lakers, and I think that was it. I did mostly everyone else. I might have mentioned it briefly in previous videos, but I have a bunch of videos where I talk about teams who I want to see in the game, what on, and so forth. So we have all these teams announced, and I was thinking about each team, and I wanted to talk about what I think will be the most fun team, the worst team out of all these. I'm not going to bring into the fact the historic teams they had before. That'd be too much. There was probably close to 20 something off the top of my head. I really don't know the number, but I think that's a fair estimate. So I'm going to be ranking the 12 teams from what 2K announced over the past few months or weeks for the 12 new historic teams. What I did was I gave a rating of a 1 through 10, depending on how much fun I think they'd be to play with in 2K16. This is not how good the teams are, or none of that. It's just based on pure entertainment factor with these teams. I'm not saying if you did like an association, the number one team would always win the most, as I think one of the most successful teams on this list is not one of my top teams. So, to get it started off, I think the most fun team in this game will easily be, not easily, but definitely at the top will be the 2008 Celtics. While I am a Celtics fan, so this might be biased, and I loved watching them go for the championship that year, this is a very, very, very deep team, and they have a great top 3 with KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce. All of them should be at least an 83. I'm predicting KG will probably be like an 87, 88, and Paul will be just hovering around a 90. And then Ray Allen will be probably like an 84. Rondo, who is a starting point guard, will probably be like a mid-70, like a 74, 75. And then Kendrick Perkins was actually pretty successful back in the day, so he'll probably be like a mid-70 as well. Then they had a lot of guys on their bench who would be really fun to play with, like Leon Poe, James Posey, I believe, Tony Allen, and I believe Sam Cassell was on that team, very deep in the bench. So that'd be a very fun and deep team to use, and that's why I ranked them up there, because if you have depth and you are fun to play with in terms of your style or who you have on your team, I'll give you a high rating. I gave them a 9. The next team also received a 9, so they were really close, and I had a tough decision for the tiebreaker at 1, but I had to give it to the Celtics. The second team is the 2005 Suns. I think this team will be very, very fun to use because they are a very deep offensive team. The reason why I had to give the Celtics over the Suns is because the Celtics have defense. While defense isn't the most fun to play in 2K, it does help your team a lot, where you win a lot more games. So the game will be more fun if you win more. While the Suns don't have atrocious defenders, they're not really that good. Steve Nash was on the team, so he wasn't that superb. Joe Johnson was their shooting guard, who is alright at defense, but he's there for scoring and playmaking. They had Sean Marion, who is a very good defender, but he seems to be the only one who is one on that team, but he's also a very good rebounder. They also had Quentin Richardson, who I believe was another starter on their team, who is a very good three-point shooter and scorer, but not much besides that. And Amari was their center, who is a very good scorer, decent defender, and a very good rebounder. They also had other guys like Leandro Barbosa, and there's a lot more that I mentioned in previous videos that you can go check out. I have a playlist that will play through all of them with my 2K news. You can skip through them, check what you like, I don't care. I don't want to do a bunch of reviews to make this an hour-long video. Just going to talk about what I think about each team and rank them. Alright, so those were my top 2 teams, and this is going to be the ratings right below it. So, in third place is the 2013 Heat. I gave them an 8.5 out of 10. I remember watching this team when they won it, and that was actually pretty awesome to watch when this is actually LeBron's second title, but it was still awesome to watch him get back-to-back titles. And this is a very good, deep team with great players at the top. They do kind of have a drop-off, but you still have LeBron, Wade, Bosh at the top, and then you also can throw in Mario Chalmers, who was pretty good that year. Shane Battier, Ray Allen, I believe, was on this team as well. So that was a very deep team. They'll be pretty fun to play with, especially with a prime LeBron, because this was the year, I believe, when he had the crazy shooting numbers, like 58% from the floor or something like that. If not, it was the year after, but for the most part, this is LeBron when he was at his peak or right around it. The next team, which I think is probably the most successful team on this entire list of new historic teams, is the 2001 Lakers, ranked 4th with an 8.5 rating. I gave them an 8.5 because, yes, they do have Shaq and Kobe when both of them were kind of in their primes. Kobe wasn't in his prime yet, but he was getting there, scoring a lot of points, so he'll be a very high rating. And Shaq was an absolute monster around this time, so he'll be an easy 92, 93. Not positive yet because of the weird rating system, but I think they'll give him a good rating. And the reason why I don't think I didn't give him a 9 or a 9.5 is that it's a steep drop off in talent besides those two. The next leading scorer after those two was Derek Fisher, averaging about 11 a game, I believe, off the top of my head. I checked it the other day, don't really remember too much, but they'll still be very fun to play with the top two, but besides that, you're going to kind of struggle, especially with the bench. The 5th ranked team I gave was the 2004 Pistons, also giving them an 8.5. I gave them that rating because this is a very, very deep team. Not bench-wise, but they do have a very good starting five all around, but they do have a couple guys on the bench who will be pretty fun to play with. And this team did win the title as well, so that gives them a little nod. Even though I said it shouldn't be about success, I mean, they were really fun to watch as well. With Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, and then off the bench, Mehmet Okur, and of course Darko, who played pretty much nothing that year. But that'll be a pretty fun team to use, so look out for them. The 6th place is another Heat team, the 2006 Heat, which I gave an 8.5 as well. This team will be pretty fun. I mean, Shaq wasn't too good this season. He was still averaging like 20 and 10, but he wasn't in his prime. He was starting to decline. But he'll still be very good to use, probably like a high 80, low 90. They had prime D Wade, or just before prime D Wade, who was still very good at that time, who will be right around the same rating. And the reason why I gave him a high score of 8.5 is they have a lot of good players who are kind of past their prime at that time, but they'll still be very, very fun to use. They do decline quite a bit after those two, but they have guys like Jason Williams, Alonzo Mourning, and a few other guys I can't remember off the top of my head, but they will be very, very fun to use in terms of just, you get to use a lot of older guys, or guys past their prime. Oh, Gary Payton, I believe, was on that team too. So that'd be pretty fun to use all those guys. Even if they're past their prime, you still got to have them. Alright, moving on to the level below it. In the 7th place, I gave it to the 2004 Wolves with an 8 rating. I gave it to the Wolves the 8 rating because they're pretty deep. They're a good top 3, but they're kind of lacking besides that. By deep, I mean, if you hear about a Kevin Garnett team in Minnesota, they were never super good. This is their best season average, where they got to the Western Conference Finals, but lost in, I think it was 4-2. And they did have Latrell Sprewell and Sam Cassell, and I believe Sam Cassell was an all-star this year. And this would be very fun to use as team. They had all the other guys like Wally Zerbiak, and there's some other guys I really don't remember because they were early 2000s players who were like decent role players. Tim Thomas, I don't think he's on this team, but that's like an example kind of player where he was alright, and I believe Tim Thomas is on 2 of these teams. I know he's on the Suns, I don't know anywhere else, but I feel like he is somewhere else. Just good role players who will be pretty fun to use, and maybe you might drop 40 with one day, like, you know, how people can do that with Terrence Ross and whatnot. Anyways, going past that, that was kind of, I don't know what I was thinking at that point. However, next team is the 2003 Mavs, also rated an 8, or I gave them an 8, and I think this will be pretty fun to use. They're not super, super good, but you're going to have a Steve Nash, who was pretty good that season, along with Dirk, and you also have Michael Finley, who, if I had to compare it to a modern day guy, I'd give him like a Luol Deng kind of comparison. Because most people don't remember Michael Finley. He was on that Celtics team as well, I believe. Because I remember him playing for the Celtics, didn't do much, but this is a guy who played a lot of minutes, was pretty much just a very good all-around player. He was a 2-time All-Star, just like Luol Deng. well, they're not like, their games aren't exactly similar. They're very alike, and that's just a little quick comparison that I thought of, and I'm pretty happy I thought about that. So that'll be a pretty decent team to use as well. Alright, here's a little step below that, and it's the 9th seed, which I gave to 2008 Rockets. Some people might be surprised since it's going to be Prime Yao and Prime T-Mac, but the thing is, at that time, like, they only had those two. Besides that, it was kind of a steep drop-off as well, which I keep on mentioning. They did have a very, very good top two. Both of them I'm expecting high ratings from, but besides that, there's no one too superb, and I believe the bench wasn't even that good that season. But this will be fun nonetheless, but not as good as other teams. Next, in the 10th spot, is the 2000 Trailblazers. While they were very successful, I don't see it too much how they will be able to be too good in 2K. Because for the most part, they have kind of older guys and guys past their primes, but there are some young guys who are pretty fun to use. Like, this is a young Rasheed Wallace. They had Jermaine O'Neal, but this is 1 year before he broke out into a superstar and an all-star in the league. But for the most part, this is kind of going to be a hard team to use. There's going to be definitely some gems in that team, like Arvydas Sabonis and Scottie Pippen. But I don't know exactly how it's going to work too well. I'm going to definitely use them a lot since I'm a Trailblazers fan. But for the most part, if I want to keep kind of an unbiased opinion, most people I don't think will enjoy this team too much. The next team, the 11th rated team, is the 2007 Cavs. I mean, this might not be too popular of an opinion, but the thing is, the Cavs team, they were only good because of LeBron. Without LeBron, that team would probably not even make the playoffs, with Zydrunas Ilgauskas and Larry Hughes being the next two best players for the most part. So while you're going to play with a very, very good LeBron, especially the young athletic superstar LeBron, you're not going to get much besides him. And like, I like historic teams that have more than like 2 or 3 options, but this team has literally only one option, that's LeBron. So they'll be fun because of LeBron, but not much besides that, so I have to give them a 7.5. And now the least rated team by me is the 2000 Raptors, which I gave a 7. This actually I might get hate for this because, you know, the Raptors didn't even make out of the first round that year, and the thing is, they only had 2 really good players, and one wasn't even that good that year, and it was Vince Carter and T-Mac, but T-Mac was still not there yet. He had pretty good stats, but he wasn't at his prime peak yet. He'll be a decent rating, like an 82, 83-ish, I believe. But besides that, they had no real bench or anyone else. They had Doug Christie on their team, who isn't that great to use. I believe they had Charles Oakley, who'll be alright, but nothing too special. Antonio Davis might have been their center. It's a team that's forgettable besides the top 2. Of course, there's some cool guys to use, like Muggsy Bogues and Del Curry. Those 2 are kind of fun to screw around with, but they're nothing substance-wise. They're not too spectacular. So, for the most part, I don't like this team, but I'll definitely use T-Mac and Vince, especially on my team. So that's my ratings and rankings of all 12 new historic teams. Of course, I wish that there were other teams in here. I mentioned that in a previous video. And just to go over it really quickly, I think the only teams I screwed up on was I called the 62 Warriors, but they only did 2000s teams, and I don't remember the other team. I think it was putting the Kings back in. I can't remember off the top of my head. You can go check out my old video that was posted probably a month ago. But for the most part, that'll be the end of this video. I really wish that they'd added some other teams, and some teams are alright, but they need some, like, they're not prime teams. Well, for the most part, that's the end of the video. Please like this video if you enjoyed my rankings, and maybe write your rankings down below. That'd be pretty cool. Tell me anything you want about this video. Subscribe for any more 2K16 news. There isn't too much more that's going to be announced, maybe some gameplay stuff, but I'll try to talk about it every once in a while, and I'll be posting once 2K16 comes out, and, you know, share this with your friends in case they like 2K. So that's about the end of the video. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day. Peace.